Gen Z lab rats, and this is a group chat that Charlie put together of just a bunch of Gen Z chapter leaders that he wanted to get their input on everything. And so today we have two of those chapter leaders joining us. It's Dino Fontegrassi, who is the chapter president of the University of Arkansas, and Brady Salmon, who's the chapter leader president of University of Kentucky. And both of these guys have seen tremendous growth on their campuses, on their social media accounts, everywhere across the board. So I first want to just open up asking them experiences that they've seen on campus, whether it be students showing up for the first time, chapter people joining their chapters for the first time. Guys, what stories have you heard? How has the growth been since 9/10 to present? In about 2 hours, it's going to be a month since that horrible day. But what have you seen that can encourage a lot of us? Let's go Dino first.
Sure. So we started off on September 8th with about 75 registered members. Since then, we have increased all the way to over 400.
Whoa.
Since earlier this week. We crossed 400. So that's been incredible. We've had Alex Stein, we've had Brylan Hollyhand, and our Instagram following went from about 1.2K. We're over 16K today.
Wow.
So there's been an incredible movement of people towards us, running towards us, not away in the face of something terrible. And I think that should be encouraging for everybody listening in today.
Guys, you're on the front lines. Have you seen political violence on campus? What have you seen that's crazy? Do you have any stories like that?
Money, we have deteriorated our currency, and the purchasing power every generation is getting weaker. So your dollar is actually going less and less as far.
Yes.
As it has year over year. So then what is the consequence of this? So you have a generation that is renting a lot more than it's owning. So when you do not own something, why would you defend it? So you find then political radicalization start to seep in, because an entire generation is getting routinely cynical year over year as their net worth either stays at zero or goes into negative.
Wow. Yeah, let's throw up 372 as well. That's a graphic that Danny found us earlier. It's the rise in the average age of homebuyers. Oh, the text on that is really tiny. Well, you can see the ladder goes to 38. So in 2010 and then before that, it was about 30 years of age to buy your first time home. And then now it's 38, and it's only increasing. I assume both of you guys want to own a house one day. And so you have this young generation who's going in debt because of college, in debt because of BNPL programs. Their wages aren't keeping up with the cost of inflation. And what they're doing is they're graduating college with degrees to go get jobs that don't exist. And so now they're thrown into the labor market that's already shrinking, and they're told to just pull yourself up by the bootstraps and figure it out by a lot of the older generation. And so this is coming from somebody who is Gen Z, by the way. And so it's hard to hear that, because I don't necessarily think I'm one of the millennial oppressors here. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he's one of the oppressors, guys.
My dad bought a house in his 20s.
I don't necessarily think the bootstraps still exist. Guys, we have about a minute and a half left. I want to hear from both of you guys in this segment what you guys think about the bootstrap.
The classic, pull yourself up by your bootstraps line. 30 seconds for each of you.
Well, yeah, I just think it's totally out of touch, and it's not something this generation really attaches itself to, because we see where the situation is now. We see the tuition going up by 1,200%, and we see that our generation's really being set back. We see that it's hard for us to get jobs with H-1B visas, and we do not want to have to force ourselves to fix this without help, as long as it's efficient. That's all we're asking for.
Yeah. Dino.
Right. So my biggest concern with this argument that you have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps is, if nobody has bootstraps, then effectively you're telling them to do something that's basically impossible for them to do. And that's why you see a big push towards somebody like Zohran Mamdani, who's promising a bunch of free people to young people in my generation. That sounds really good on paper, but we've seen what that looks like when these type of people promising these policies get in power. It looks like Venezuela. It looks like the Soviet Union. It looks like China. And it's not good, and lots of people tend to die. So we can't do that in America. We've got to find a better solution.
Wow, you guys nailed that. 30 seconds each.
I know.
They're
very
perfectly
impressive,
did that. All right, so we'll keep them past the break.
Yeah. With the great Dino and Brady, chapter presidents at the University of Kentucky and the University of Arkansas. Thank you guys for hanging through this segment. Okay, so we were going to throw to this, but we ran out of time. But we're going to throw to it right now. 377. This is an article from Fortune. It says, today's housing market is so upside down that there are more senior citizens buying homes than Gen Z and millennials. Yikes.
Booming out of control.
And then there's another article that says, this is CNBC, investors are making up the highest share of home buyers in 5 years. So between investors, this is BlackRock, Blackstone, and senior citizens, where are the houses going?
I looked, we talked about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, and it's become so difficult for the younger generations. I just had to search what actually is a bootstrap, because it occurred to me I wasn't really sure. It's the little strap from the back of the boot. It turns out you had to attach it to something.
Well, let's play clip 147. This is Charlie's own words, and then we're going to get you guys to react to this.
What policy do you support to make it easier for young people to buy homes?
Get rid of BlackRock purchasing a bunch of homes and renting them back to us.
Okay, so like seize their assets?
Not seize their assets. Make it illegal that asset managers over $500 billion can't buy single-family homes.
Okay, I really agree with that. That's actually that's great.
Thank you. Yeah. It's a super simple policy fix. If you have assets under management over $500 billion or $100 billion, you should not be in the single-family home business. Period.
Okay.
And that's artificially boosting housing prices across the country. I believe homeownership is a moral good for all people.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting thing that you have to recognize they're not just an investment thing. We're recognizing that it is good for people to own things because it gives them a stake in society. And
so, Dino, why don't you react to this?
Sure. So when you say that boomers and older are buying all of the houses, we have to keep in mind that if they're not buying them from BlackRock, they're buying them from each other. They're effectively sitting here and trading houses back and forth the same way millennials trade Pokemon cards. And that's not good, because that's
I got rid of my Pokemon cards years ago, Dino. I'm just going to say that.
Look, I got rid of mine too because I found that they were a distraction and I had work to do. But it's true. They go back and forth to one another. Of course, it's going to be impossible because that's how the prices get artificially boosted. Because they bought a house in 1987 or before that, and it cost them $50,000 cash in hand and a basket of mulberries. And how can we possibly compete when today that same house is what? $500, $600, $700 million? Or not million, excuse me, thousand, but still. It's way out of range for somebody in my generation.
Yeah. What about you, Brady?
Well, yeah, I mean, when you have real estate investors buying a third of all single-family properties, and you now have families living in RVs and renting instead of owning a home, I mean, it's clear to everybody that when boomers and investors are buying all of these houses up, it's really just sending us behind. And then we're told to pick us up by our own bootstraps, and it's like you're really setting us back. And then now you're expecting us to just figure it out by ourselves. And it's really just doesn't work like that. And they're really not taking that to consider what really we need and what is our needs.
Exactly. Yeah. One of the themes Charlie was hitting on so much just the last few months, he talked about that choice, Mamdaniism or MAGA. And what drives so much of Mamdaniism is that nihilistic sense of, if I own nothing, if I have nothing, I might as well turn the entire system over, overthrow everything, because maybe I'll get something, and if not, I can tear down the people above me. It's a very resentment-based ideology. And the offset to that is you have to give people a stake in things. You have to give them something they don't want to blow up and throw away. And it's such a basic thing, and we need to, when we structure our laws, we have to think about that, because one of the biggest reasons housing just keeps going up is we kind of just baked into the assumption housing prices have to go up. They're an investment for everybody, and it's going to be very difficult to navigate this, but we have to really move towards this. A house is something that people live in, and they need to own it themselves, ideally, and that is how you'll avoid some sort of gigantic revolution.
And I'll just say this, too. There's a moment in that clip we played where the student agrees with Charlie, and he's like, yeah, and kind of smiles.
Charlie was so good at that.
He was so good at that. And in his Tucker interview, Tucker goes, how do you know these things? And Charlie goes, well, Tucker, half the time I spend 100 hours on campus in the spring and the fall. Half the time I have my mic down and I'm just listening. So this is our challenge to the older people watching this. Put the mic down. Just listen.
Talk to your grandkids about what they're really feeling about these things.
Yes.
Can they afford things?
Put the mic down. Just listen a little bit. Yeah. Awesome.
Dino, Brady, thank you for coming on, and best of luck continuing to grow your chapters, and we'll be having more chapter heads on in the weeks to come.
Yeah, thank you, Dino. Thank you, Brady.
He started this ministry because he was reading the Psalms. How good and pleasant it is when brethren dwell together in peace. And it was over 40 years ago, and he saw his brethren. He saw Jack Hayford and Pat Robertson and Pat Boone and all these leaders of the time who came and said, we pray for Israel, we love Israel, we want to stand with Israel, and we see the God of Israel working, we want to be part of it. And that's continued today, of course, with Matt and Lori, who are heroes of Israel, and people like you, Tom, that through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we are living the scriptures, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, sheltering the poor. And so wherever there's a crisis, I would say, the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews is there to bring aid. We operate in 47 countries. We bring the Jewish people home from all four corners of the earth, just as it says in scriptures. That, Tom, I look at the words of Isaiah and Jeremiah, and then I look at the work that the fellowship is doing on the ground, helping the orphans and the widows, and being there to bring light and hope to people's lives where they otherwise wouldn't have it, in the land where Jesus was born, in the land where Jesus walked, in the city that he had his Passover meal, his final supper. It's something that at the fellowship, we believe that it's saving lives, but also saving spirits. And that's the biggest blessing in the world.
I saw a clip with Bishop Lanier. He was flying in with a group, I think it was from France,
Yes.
that had just coming back to Israel. They were moving to Israel. There seems to be a lot of people from different parts of the world coming home to Israel right now. Is this an unprecedented time where people are returning because there's so much, I don't know what to say, discord, challenges out there right now? What's going on?
Yeah. We're seeing Jewish people coming home to Israel, just as the Bible predicted, from lots of countries for many reasons. So they're coming home from France because they're facing anti-Semitism. They're coming home from the former Soviet Union because there's war and persecution. They're coming home from South America because there's extreme poverty. They can't even get food and the basics. But Tom, they're also coming home from India because that's the lost tribe from Manasseh.
Wow.
And they're coming home from Ethiopia because that's the lost tribe of Dan. That we're living in times where on one hand, there's extreme darkness that we all feel. Physical darkness, spiritual darkness. There's spiritual warfare and there's physical wars. But on the other hand, Tom, God makes his light shine even brighter in the darkness. That from this turmoil, we're seeing his word come to fruition in so many beautiful ways. And I think we could both say also that we see so many Christians and Jews rediscovering their roots, because I think we live in a time right now where if you don't hold on to God, you have nothing to hold on to. And more people are recognizing God is the answer. Being connected to the Spirit who's alive in each one of our lives is the answer. God saw us. He has a mission for us. And if you don't believe that, these days are very dark. So to see how many people are having this revival, communities, countries, churches, synagogues, God's word is alive, sometimes even brighter on the backdrop of darkness.
Wow. I think what's hard to keep into context is that International Fellowship of Christian and Jews was active before the war in Gaza happened. It was active in the Ukraine before there was a war in the Ukraine. But whether there's war or whether there's peace, what you do has to continue and keep going. And I think our audience is familiar with the Holocaust survivors. I mean, IFCJ has headlined that significantly, that there are still Holocaust survivors, and you're still doing a great job with helping so many in the Ukraine and in many places in the world, but also in Israel, those who have returned already. But
repeated threats, he remained undeterred and modeled courage, logic, humor, and grace to the next generation.
Thank you for praying for us and for believing in what Charlie believed in. And to our Turning Point USA staff and the Charlie Kirk Show staff, we love you more than you could ever know. And to the Turning Point USA chapters that are watching all across